welcome to the Elite List. I'm Dr. Chamara Kwakye, Assistant Professor at the University of Kentucky in Gender and Women's Studies and African American Studies. And tonight's panel is called Do You Know Your America? I'll let the panelists introduce themselves.
Well, hello everyone. You all know me. I'm Kelly Moore. I am the host of the Elite List, but stepping aside for Dr. Kwakye, I am a junior majoring in community and leadership development.
Hello.
Oh, and a minor African American studies. Sorry,
my bad.
I totally forgot about that.
Hello, I'm Isaac Epps. I am a accounting major. I am the treasurer of Iota Phi Theta fraternity at Zeta Psi chapter of University of Kentucky, and also an emissary at the MLK Center.
Hello, I'm Raisha Shabazz, majoring in elementary education. I'm currently a junior here at the university. I am in the Manners organization as well as the CARES ambassador. And as you know, you see my face through the buzz on campus on the Elite List.
Hello, I'm Devontae. I am a sophomore. I am a double major, community leadership and development and political science.
All right, so let's get right into it. For the first topic in Do You Know Your America, what do you know about race in America?
No, we
Anybody
got
can jump in.
a long way to go with this race card.
I think race is definitely evident. Like, people like to say like they don't see color, but it's evident that I'm black opposed to somebody who's white. Like, I just think white people try to say that they don't see color to make it like a equal playing field, and it's not necessarily like that regardless if they don't see color or not.
So colorblindness being a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I feel though, as race, we've formed our own type of like organizations within our own races. Basically, like we've decided that we are black, so we're our own type of people.
It's like we're separating ourselves.
Yeah, separating ourselves, basically. Whenever we go out with each other. We hang out with the people who look more like us and everything. So I feel like even race in America is gonna be here forever.
Well, and that's mainly because America created race. Like, it's no biological anything tied to it. It is a social construct. Like, they created race to separate the blacks, well, to keep people enslaved. First it was about religion, but then it's when it turned to race. So they was like, oh, these people are darker. We can make laws to make them be enslaved for life because they're darker. So it was a way to separate two types of people.
I mean, you're right on that too, but I mean, it was an overtime. It was like an evolution to it. I mean, we didn't start out. I mean, the first slaves came over with Jamestown, African Americans. And there was no laws that said, slavery was exactly black. I don't think we started seeing that till about the 1800s, where they really came into effect, that determining that black was a part of slavery. It's something that will always exist. I don't think that we can. People think that we can get rid of it. It's something that will never change as long as you have people that were taught that from a young age, and as they get older, it will continually evolve, and they would teach their children, so it'll be something that's around forever. We have to find a way to look at it in a more positive way. And yeah.
Two things. Let's go back to Ms. Shabazz's point about, in terms of the color blindness, right? Do we see color? Is that in basically the dissolution of race? Like, could we ever get rid of it? Is it a bad thing to be colorblind, or is it a good thing to be colorblind? You don't have to answer. I'm just
there's both. In the workforce, I think it's a great thing to be colorblind. But when I am trying to relate, I stay with 3 white roommates. So when I'm trying to relate to something that's black, I can't relate to those guys. Again, we were watching the movie 42 the other day, and I literally had to leave the room because the N-word said in there so much. Those guys didn't understand the sting that I felt when I heard it, and they were just able to watch the movie and not seeing, understand that part. So I think it's when it comes to relating to people, that it can also be a good thing.
True.
Other thoughts?
I think that I feel like there might be a slight social injustice for people of color. So I feel as though colorblindness might actually be a good thing in order, to avoid issues of me walking around, one night with a Arizona tea and some Skittles, and I'm a threatening figure. You know what I'm saying?
How will we go about ingraining this colorblind. The problem with race is that it's here. It's something that we have to continuously deal with. But it's also codified in our laws, the way we see people, the way we stereotype people, the way that it affects people economically. So how do we move from this idealism of colorblindness to actually putting that into practice? Because, I mean, if George Zimmerman, what would George Zimmerman have to have done in order to think that Trayvon Martin wasn't a criminal? Like, what would we have had to give him as a society for him to really own colorblindness? And
I think a lot of it comes with media, but not just media, but it's passed down from generations. From the day I was born, my mother told me I was a black man. You know what I'm saying? She didn't tell me I was an American. She told me I was a black man. I don't recall my mother even telling me I was even born in this country. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy to think that. So I think in order to get to this, we want equality. In order to obtain that, we need to tell our children, you are an American. You know what I'm saying? Be proud that you're an American, and that someone who might be just so happen to be lighter than you can be your brother also. You know what I'm saying? When the word brother usually goes with the term of, you know what I'm saying, oh, those are the brothers, which is a group of black people. You know what I'm saying? I feel is that we need to see it as a broader way.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but if I was born in another country and I was American, my mother would tell me that, hey, you're an American, because that's what I would need to relate to. But being here, I already know. I mean, it's not thought of us to look at each other as where we're from. Like, my mom didn't tell me that I was a Kentuckian. I was born here. She didn't have to tell me that. But being black, that's one of the things that we have to identify. When you start taking your test, they don't ask you where you're from, what country you're from. They're asking you, are you black, are you white, are you Hispanic? Those are the questions that they're at. So I feel like our parents are already trying to get us to take ownership for what we're at. I mean, again, that's an institutional thing.
Yeah,
so
it is.
And the thing when you spoke about your mother, well, both of you guys telling you that your mother told y'all was black men, was the thing that black people are taught about race sooner than whites. Like, whites don't even realize race or even acknowledge it until they're in their, like, adolescent age or, like, 13. But we as black people, we get told, like, as soon as we're able to talk. So
they don't know their race in terms they don't see themselves necessarily as having a race. They might see themselves as normal, but they definitely know the distinction between people of color and what it means to
But
be
if
white.
we ask them, I bet you they're going to tell you that they're Italian, or they're going to tell you that they're European. I mean, they're not going to say I just feel that they don't have to look at themselves as being white. So when they go to naming themselves, they usually name themselves as what ethnicity, that they're coming from.
Some people do. If they can actually kind of go back that far, right? Just like African Americans generally say, like, either that they're black or they're African American, unless they're from an actual African country or the Caribbean. They usually don't tack on kind of an ethnicity to their identity. What else can you tell me about race?
I've noticed there's a lot of intra-racism. Like, it's a lot of racism between our own culture, between our own ethnicity, between light skins and dark skins, and I think that's absurd. Like, I know as a child, being dark skinned, I was teased, and I was like, I don't know, it just hurt my feelings to know that being darker skinned, you're devalued as a person. Like, I know even today, when you look in the media, you see Nicki Minaj, you see Beyonce, you rarely see a dark skinned female successful who's put on TV.
And who stays dark skinned.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll see them start out, they my color, but then
makeup.
The lights, they're very bright.
I think it's very demeaning to be, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Now, I wasn't for sure because I remember someone telling me that in psychology, we typically like people that's more in the medium things. So not being too dark and not being too pale. So I'm not sure if it's just a psychological thing or it's really just how, like, during the past of slavery, the whole dark skin, light skin, so field slave, house slave came about, or why we have this idea that being dark skin is bad and being light skin is good. Being a red bone is beautiful, but
it depends on who
Kelly
you
Rowland.
Because I'm all for the dark.
Okay.
Which it could be.
And this notion of skin color is not exclusive to African Americans, right? This divide between light skin and dark skin is not exclusive to African Americans. Latinos struggle with the same thing, particularly Afro Latinos, right? Who have different types of skin colors, Southeast Asian, all of these people all of these groups struggle with this binary between skin color. So let's move on. In terms of your America, what do you know about education?
Education is a way to instill values or instill a tradition, like at a young age, to where you grow up knowing it. Like that's how you can take over someone, is back through education.
Right, the hidden curriculum, right? What we teach children is what they're supposed to in turn value and replicate, right? This is how we create citizens. This is how we create workers. This is how we create a class system. This is how we create sexism via kind of this hidden curriculum of who can be what, right? We teach this to children at a very young age.
Education is our only way out of poverty, I feel. There's black communities have suffered a lot in the education area. We're not getting the funding that we need. I believe I read somewhere the other day that our college males compared to males that are in jail, that the population of jail and incarcerated people are more than there is of us that are in college. So I feel education is very important to Black America, but we're not getting what we need, and we're not asking for. We're not asking for those.
But then again, it's hard to ask for something that you're unaware of.
Right.
Like, what do you mean unaware of?
Like basically, like, you can't miss something you've never had. So if you've never had a enriched education, you don't know what you're missing.
Well, right. Like, if you're not exposed to this curriculum, then how do you know to ask for what you're not exposed to?
And great argument. But then I also looked, when there was segregation, those people didn't have the top-notch education, but that's exactly what they were fighting for. So now that we've had that fight to get into education and be able to sit in those seats, I feel that part of the problem is us ourselves. I mean, there's books in the library. My teacher didn't teach me everything I needed to know, but my mom made sure that I was Black History Month, that I was reading something, and I was writing a paper for her. It wasn't going to school, but I was writing a paper that she had to read to make sure I knew my things. So I don't think when we talk about education, we should just look at the classroom. I think we need to put education back inside of our homes and, make that a number one priority. Because when we were missing education, that's what parents were wanting. They were making their kids sit down and read, and those type of things.
There are studies that argue that African American children had better educations under segregation because there were more African American teachers. They lived exclusively in Black communities, so churches, schools, all these other forms were connected to these parents and teachers in ways that folks saw you saw your teacher outside of school because they went to your church, they lived down the street, they lived in your community. And now we don't kind of have those things where we have like this concentration of either folks traveling miles to get to school, or their teachers don't live in their communities for whatever reasons. They're not Black teachers, and so that creates kind of this gap in terms of what you're talking about, a comprehensive, right, a total community and comprehensive education for African American students.
And that's what I kind of want to bring up. During the segregation time, you were saying that there was Black teachers. I didn't want to go to college until I actually seen my uncle, I feel like he was the only college grad I know, become an engineer and become very, very successful. All I knew in my life was what I seen. And I didn't see educated Black men. I seen Black men who just got out of jail. So it's really hard to tell someone that you need to go to college and do this, that, and this when you don't know exactly.
You can't relate to
I'm not saying go to college. I'm saying gain knowledge. I mean, I understand what you're saying on going to college, but I'm saying, you can be the janitor at a high school, but as long as you're still trying to do something to enhance yourself, that's what I'm getting at. I'm not speaking of just education and through college. I feel that we've lacked and we have lost wanting to know things. We've lost that, and that's really going to.
Well, I feel as though as naturally human beings learn by observation. So as a Black man growing up, you observe, some of the most successful people, and unfortunately we see people more of like rappers and football players. So that's what we strive to be. At a young age, I know many Black males put their kids through sports and whatnot, and they dedicate so much time to that instead of education. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have that observation of, okay, I can see this guy doing this, that's going to get me here.
Well, I feel like you're letting them off on an excuse, kind of like a teacher would.
No.
Well, it's okay just because you're black.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically like saying it's okay just because you're from this side of town, you're black, that you're scoring lower on math tests and you're doing those type of things. I feel like there has to be some ownership, and we have haven't tried to get that ownership for ourselves and our own knowledge.
I'm saying that I feel like there's a destruction of that. We've been a diminish of the educated black male is one of the main reasons why test scores are so low. Just one of the reasons, in my opinion.
Let me pose this question to you guys, or just state this and then have you guys think about it. So there's been numerous studies about the amount of loan debt that students are leaving college with. This generation, your generation, will have amongst the highest, and part of my generation, I'm not that much older than y'all, will have some of the highest college loan debt. So paying for 4 years of college, that's just 4 years of college. What do you guys feel about that? Like this, which we know now impedes folks' opportunities in terms of what they can buy, if they can buy a home. You're constantly paying the government back for this money that you borrowed, and you don't have the kind of jobs to go with it, right? You're not. The job market is really hard right now for folks coming out with just a bachelor's.
I think it's very strategic. If your parents didn't go to college and then you end up going to college, they don't have the proper funding to support you because they didn't attain those career fields that could support a college education. So I think, like, for African American students, when we go to college, we're gonna have more debt than Caucasian people.
Yeah, and that's the group that's being hardest hit is African Americans and Latinos. Because
I think it stems from all the way back when they all these jobs and corporations that Caucasians own compared to black people, and then you come up to now, they've been handed down in families, whereas you don't see not a lot of colored business owners or black business owners today. So I just think it stems from way back, and now we have this debt on our hands because our parents can't support us financially, so we take out all these loans.
I have friends who are still living at home at 30 some odd years old.
Oh, I'm not trying to be like that.
Yeah, so you're not trying to.
I ain't trying to thinking about like it either.
Thinking about generational wealth. I mean, because then all of these things are impacted, right? When you start your life, if you plan to have children and marriage and those things, all of those things are now impacted. So what do you guys think about that? What's going to happen with that?
And again, I mean, it has to start somewhere. Right. I mean, there's no way you can change it. It's there. It's going to happen. But, I mean, for my family to have a chance to have that generational wealth, I'm going to have to put myself in some type of debt. Yeah. Well, and, I mean, and you have to choose the right career fields. I mean, even though if it's something that you don't like. I have a friend, she doesn't like blood, but she's going into nursing because that's a field that she can get something
And
with.
Going back to education, I'm looking to be an elementary teacher, and as you said, like, you got to choose a career that gives you the most money, but then again, what happens
I'm not saying the most money. I'm saying we're job growth.
We're the
booming job booming.
Okay.
I feel like that we've been sold the American dream, and it's not what it really is. You know what I'm saying? No one tells us.
Up empty on them checks that
exactly
the money that was promised to us.
No one. I feel like some people don't realize that when you go to college, it's not just about education. Unfortunately, it's about you obtaining a skill set that's worthy. You know what I'm saying? So like when people get down here and they take certain majors and whatnots and don't exactly know what they're gonna do, you know what I'm saying? It leaves us.
How does that go back to your point though about seeking to be educated? This is something, and I completely agree with that. Yeah. There's a balance that has to happen because you have to thirst and want knowledge, right? Yeah. That's just a part of being a human being and growing and developing. But then how do you balance this practical side of gaining a skill set and then having a career?
I think our American dream we've kind of looked at it the wrong way. There's a way of work, there's that part that you happen to work. I don't think you can really, now we can look at it and say, people were just handed money. But there was a time that when we go back and look at that money still had to be worked for. And we hear the golden stories all the time. Like America's used to hearing those golden stories. Yeah. Well, they're not all like that. There's some rusty ones too, but and there's a little gold under them. But I just feel we need to still keep working and try to make something happen.
That's a good point. We're going to take a break and we'll be back. Welcome back to the Elite List. I'm Dr. Chamara Kwakye, hosting tonight's Do You Know Your America with panelists Ms. Moore, Mr. Epps, Ms. Shabazz, and Mr. Hollowell. So we're going to jump right back into it. We left off with education, but we're going to switch into media representation. What do you know about media representation in America?
I know that black people are underrepresented.
Yes.
As in everything.
That's what I was going to say. Because, I mean, it brings me back to my point that we're really losing the image of the educated black man. Because now that we see on media, we see the rappers, we see the football player, and even with like sitcoms, we see the ratchet grandmother who acts all crazy, and everyone thinks that we have a ratchet grandmother like Medea just going around with guns, and it's just like we're normal. We have normal family. And you would never be able to tell.
We get false images. And then, like, black people, they look at it, or the black children, they look at TV as a learning tool, whether it's false information or real information. And they take that and they run with it. So that's why everybody wants to twerk now. That's why he wants to be a rapper. She wants to be a singer. She wants to have booty shots and breast implants and this, that, and the other.
And when our white friends ask us, they automatically assume we either know how to throw a ball or shoot a ball, or we already know how to dance, or we have to know how to sing. We have to be the entertainers of America. It's based off
exactly what it is.
What we get from the media. So we don't see ourselves as doctors and whatnots.
We don't. I mean, and then again, there's no one in that place to tell us black children from watching TV to trying those actions that's not all you got to be.
Exactly.
That's not all you have to be.
But
there's more to being black than what you see on TV.
I think it would definitely help if we got more channels than just VH1 and BET.
Yeah. Oh man.
Like, I feel like we're only seen on basically 2 channels, and it makes us look like we are the minority when I believe we are the majority. Minorities are the majority. You know, so
people of color are the majority in America, and also what we see is pretty much run by 5 companies in the United States. So all of the images that we see, all of these things are filtered through 5 major corporations. We don't kind of have control, and this is why a lot of people, students and otherwise actors, actresses, are taking to writing their own stories and putting them out either independently with campaigns like Kickstarter. Even Spike Lee, who's a well-established director, has his own Kickstarter campaign because he doesn't want to go through the kind of Hollywood studio mainstream where he would have to kind of compromise his art. So we have to start, again, making our own stories and images so that we can see those things.
Well, I think when I watch media, I usually don't watch anything that I can relate to. When I'm watching something, I'm trying to find another story for somebody else. Honey Boo Boo is one of my favorite shows.
Oh my God.
Everybody needs a guilty pleasure.
One of my favorite shows because I like seeing white country people act that way. Like it's just entertainment to me.
Yeah.
But then I also understand that that's probably not how they exactly live. They probably have a big house behind this small house that they're showing on TV.
Well, now I believe now.
Yeah.
Well, now they do, but at first,
Yeah.
But so I feel like that's not all of us. I mean, it might represent one person, one black person, and so I don't think the people that are watching the show are really that many black people, like you said, that the minority is a majority. The majority of the people who are watching the show are trying to find out what it's like to be black.
Yeah.
What's it like to be a black family or something like that.
In Honey Boo Boo's case, probably what it's like to be poor, right? Poor and white.
And I feel as though when viewers watch this, they determine that that's how we all act. So like when we go to school, you know what I'm saying, if we go in there and we actually answering questions and we speak proper English and we're able to read, they're thinking, you're trying to act white. And it's just like, wow. Because
we don't have any role models who are educated. Like we don't have no one to look up to say, oh, he's just being a black man. She's just being a black woman. We think, oh, you're trying to be white.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got to the point where you have to be dumb, stupid, play some type of sport, or be able to sing or rap in order to be considered black. And it's a horrible representation of us.
So those are the media stereotypes. So for black folks, what are the media stereotypes?
Being undereducated.
Undereducated. What else?
Loud.
Right.
That's what many
confrontational, aggressive.
Yeah.
And our women have to be sluts, basically.
So black women are sexually aggressive. They're kind of always after sex. What about black men? So you said a rapper, a ball player. What else?
Violent.
Someone who splurges money on ridiculous things, like putting a TV in the gas tank.
I would have to say most of us, we're kind of pictured as not even really being there for our children. If there's a TV show, you know, either the dad's there and he's not working, or if he's not there, you know, the mother, she's a doctor or something, you know, something in that sort. So we're pictured not being there for.
So absent. Black men are absent.
Yeah.
What else do you know about media representation in America?
I know a lot of media representation is whitewash, meaning like it's just like if something's true to black culture, they'll capture it and like put their little spin on it. Yeah, and then you get things such as The Lone Ranger, the movie, which flopped at the box office. You get cartoons such as X-Men, who has these main characters who are great characters, created after black civil rights leaders like Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So
I mean, the X-Men in and of itself as a comic book was supposed to be about, right, these people that are abnormal, not the norm. So people of color is what they're supposed to be about. And then you kind of have this, when we see it in actual reality, we have this flip where most of the characters are white.
Well, with children, I mean, I understand you're talking about X-Men and being whitewashed. That's some of the best ways to get them to understand diversity. I mean, you can't...
Racism, right?
I mean, you got to just understand diversity. I mean, I don't think they would get the same lesson if it's just a bunch of black people on there doing extraordinary things. Because, again, that's going to be the only media source that's looking at us that way. So it's just not one source. I guess it's more about how all the sources together put us in those common things and the norms that they have us do.
One thing, though, I feel that we have a common theme in America, though, is that we often, at times, we kind of wipe out the fact that we were here. You know what I'm saying? Like, even in our history books, we hear all these things about the 1800s, and you would never think there was a single black man in America, and isn't this crazy?
The history books, like... What I was so infuriated when I read an article about Texas passing a committee passing a hearing stating that slaves were not going to be mentioned as slaves in history books. They were going to be plantation interns.
Oh wow! Because we was
interns. I was.
So an intern usually signs up for something, to give their labor freely, in exchange for that kind of skill set and all of those things that come with that skill, the experience. Whereas slavery, if you use the term slave or slavery, right, you have to talk about the inequality that's inherent in being a slave and what it means to be a slave.
Since you brought up slavery and we're talking media, I think one thing media has, and it's changed a lot of black people because they see it. Us having a black president that they think that we made it somewhere, you know, and which is we've made it a step further than we did yesterday, but we're still not where we need to be at because a fact of it is right after direct Reconstruction, we had more black representatives than we do today.
True.
Yeah.
So
and most folks don't even know that.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we don't let the media let us think that it's okay and everything is moving in the right direction, because we're far from that.
I want Ms. Shabazz to jump in because I know I don't want us to run out of time, and I want you to make sure we hear your voice on this.
About that. Well, like I mentioned previously, I just think that media brainwashes us to believe how we should look and how we should act, especially our black boys and girls growing up to aspire to be singers and rappers and football players. I also, I think I liked recently that we had a lot of like slavery-based movies in the media. I think it helped educate whoever went to go see it, the youth, and also the black community. But I fall short on the fact that every time there's some movie put out, it's always like a white person who's also like one of the other main characters who aided in helping. You know, it's never just the black person struggling and then making out a struggle by themselves. It's always with the aid of someone who's white. As if we can't do it by ourselves.
I see chomping at the bit.
I mean,
because I don't. I mean, it's again. Slavery is one of those unique things that none of the stories are the same. I mean, and I think one of the worst problems is we get that idea in our head that every plantation was big, and you know that none of these people really worked by their, masters didn't work by their slaves. At the height, at its biggest point, I think only 10% of people had slaves plantations that had 50 or more slaves on. Right. So we have, in most cases, like you're saying, white people did end up helping. They did end up helping, and so I think that it's okay to put that in there. But again, we're still not getting that slave story, the true slave story, and I don't think we'll be able to get that.
I think as long as we have the same media outlets as you mentioned, it'll always be whitewashing. It'll always be
Well, how do you feel about media takeout though? Like where we recording our own selves being ratchet.
Well, World Star,
we're not going down that rabbit hole. Okay, we only got a couple seconds left, so I want you guys to each go around kind of each of the topics, not each of the topics, but just a final point that you want to leave people with about anything we've talked about here tonight.
Well, one thing that I want everyone to know is that the University of Kentucky was established in 1865. If you don't know when that was, it's when it was they freed the slaves, kind of, so to speak. So it's been, this year is the 150th anniversary of Kentucky, so which means the 150th anniversary for the abolition of slavery, not counting Mississippi. But it's kind of like 1 year for them. But I do want people to realize that it will take a while. It's been 150 years, but 100 of that was Jim Crow, and then another 50 is like us now. So we still have a long way to go, as Devontae was saying. Was saying.
Mr. X.
I think one of the important topics that we was talking about was race. I feel as though in order to actually enjoy living in America and being able to live freely, we have to look at race a little less. Instead of us being African Americans, we need to look at ourselves more of Americans who just happen to be black, and just in my opinion. And we need to see, white people not as our opponents, but as fellow citizens of our country.
I want to touch on the fact that as a future educator, I think that children, they need to have more minority teachers in the classroom so they can relate to them, so they can see within their teacher the same thing they see within themselves, that they can too acquire a career that doesn't involve football or singing or anything that you see on TV. So that's what I want to take away from that.
I want to touch on race, and I feel that a Black Power movement is necessary for the black community.
We coming.
If we want something to be ours, it's about time that we start making it ours. Those that can afford to put businesses back into their communities, they need to put them there. And those that can afford to go back and change just one street, if you can just change one street, that will start to make a difference. So let's take back what's ours.
Definitely.
I am Chamara Kwakye, Dr. Chamara Kwakye, and thank you for watching The Elite List. I appreciate all of you guys coming out tonight and for your input. Have a good night.